It was supposed to be a normal Wednesday afternoon. My studio smelled faintly of fresh paint and canvas, and the sunlight filtered through the windows in soft stripes. I was halfway through sketching a new design for a client when I noticed Hosung's iPad lying on the counter. He had said he left it here for me to use, a simple gesture, nothing more. But something inside me nagged at the edge of my mind. Maybe it was intuition, or maybe it was the tiny voice that had been whispering doubts for weeks. I opened the Find My iPad app on my phone, expecting it to show the usual, his office, his favorite cafe, maybe even the gym. Instead, my heart froze. The location blinked back at me. A notorious love hotel downtown, right in the middle of a workday. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. My thoughts swirled. It's impossible. He wouldn't. Could he? I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach, and then a creeping, undeniable dread. I didn't want to believe it. But the GPS never lies. I grabbed my coat, my fingers trembling, and headed out. Each step felt heavier than the last, my mind replaying every moment we had shared. The laughter, the late-night calls, the way he promised he'd never hurt me. All of it now felt like a cruel joke. When I arrived, I stood across the street, watching the entrance. My chest constricted as I saw him walk out, casual, smiling, a smile meant for someone else. And, beside him, my cousin. The woman I had trusted, the family I thought I could count on. My vision blurred with tears and disbelief. I stumbled backward, my hand gripping my phone so tightly the screen almost cracked. My mind screamed, "Why? How?" My heart felt like it had been ripped from my chest, and in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I was done. Not done with him alone. Done with my old self, the forgiving, trusting, hopeful version of me that had always given people the benefit of the doubt. She was gone. Burned out by betrayal, by lies, by deceit, so deep it cut through my very soul. I turned and walked away, tears blinding me, but anger bubbling beneath. I didn't cry for long. Anger had taken root where heartbreak used to live. Later that night, I called Do-Wan. My voice shook, but I didn't cry into the phone. I couldn't. Do-Wan, it's Hosung. And it's my cousin, I said, the words tasting like ash. There was a long pause. Then, calm and steady, he said, "Let's burn it all down." That single sentence, simple and unjudged, ignited something inside me. I had found my partner in this storm, not to soothe my pain, not to console me with pity, but to fight with me, side by side, against the betrayal that had tried to destroy me. I looked around my apartment, at the canvases and sketches that had been my sanctuary. It felt different now, like the world had shifted. The woman I had been was dead. And from the ashes, Seo Hyun 2.0 was rising, sharper, colder, and ready to reclaim everything that had been taken from her. The next morning, I woke with a strange mix of fury and clarity. My studio, once a haven filled with sunlight and paint, felt like a battleground. The betrayal wasn't just a personal wound, it was a declaration of war. And I was ready to fight. I met Do-Wan at our favorite cafe, the one tucked in a quiet alley that nobody ever seemed to notice. He was already there, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, eyes serious but steady. Seeing him, I felt a flicker of relief. He wasn't going to lecture me or tell me I was overreacting. He was going to help. "You've been quiet," he said, voice calm. "But I can see the storm inside you. You ready to talk about it?" I took a deep breath, gripping my cup. It's Hosung and my cousin. I saw them. Together. At a love hotel. During the day. And my voice broke slightly. I can't even process it. Do-Wan didn't say a word. He just sat, watching me, letting me pour the poison of betrayal into the empty space between us. There was no judgment, no condescension, just presence. And it made me feel slightly less broken. Finally, he spoke, low and steady. "Then let's burn it all down." I blinked, surprised by his choice of words. "What do you mean?" He said, leaning forward, eyes sharp. "We cut the roots. We make sure Hosung can't hurt anyone else. Your cousin, her tuition? Gone. Hosung's career? Crumbling. And you, he paused, giving me a small, reassuring smile. You get your life back, piece by piece. I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was bold, dangerous, but it was exactly what I needed. Anger still coursed through me, but now it had direction. I wasn't going to cry over betrayal anymore. I was going to act. Okay, I whispered, my voice gaining strength. Then we do it, step by step. And we don't rush it. Every move has to be precise. Do-Wan nodded approvingly.
Exactly.
And Seo-hyun, don't think for a second you have to do this alone. I'm with you. All the way. Hearing that, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Trust. Not blind trust, but the kind born from years of friendship, from understanding each other without words. Do-Wan had always been in the background, steady, reliable, unnoticed by everyone except me. And now he was my shield, my strategist, my partner. We spent the afternoon plotting. Every detail mattered. The channels to cut off Hosung's influence, the ways to quietly sabotage my cousin's privileges, the timing to ensure maximum impact. Anger fueled our discussions, but it was tempered with precision. You're really good at this, I said at one point, genuinely impressed. You think like him, but better. Do-Wan smiled faintly. I've been waiting for the day someone needed a plan like this. And honestly, I've hated Hosung for years. Never said it before, but he shrugged casually. This feels right. I laughed bitterly, feeling a strange warmth in my chest. I guess you're finally out of the background, huh? He grinned, and for the first time, I felt hope instead of despair. Guess so. But don't forget, we do this together. And after, maybe we figure out the rest. Slowly. I nodded, the fire inside me steady now, controlled. The woman who forgave too easily was gone. Seo-hyun 2.0 was in charge, and with Do-Wan by my side, the reckoning would be meticulous, deliberate, and sweet. The betrayal had sparked something dangerous and powerful, and I was ready to wield it. The day after our planning session, I woke with a mix of anticipation and nerves. Today, we would make the first tangible moves against Hosung and my cousin. My hands trembled slightly as I brewed coffee, the steam rising like smoke from the battlefield I was about to enter. Do-Wan arrived at my apartment promptly, his expression unreadable but resolute. He carried a laptop and a folder thick with notes, plans, and evidence we had gathered. Are you ready? He asked, voice calm measured. I nodded, gripping my mug so tightly my knuckles whitened. I have to be. There's no turning back now. We began by focusing on my cousin. She had always relied on my family's support, tuition, privileges, little indulgences that made her life cushy. Cutting her off would be a shock and a lesson. Do-Wan's fingers flew across the keyboard, drafting formal notices and redirecting payments while I double-checked every detail. Are you sure this will work? I asked quietly, swallowing the lump of guilt threatening to rise. Do-Wan gave me a small, reassuring smile. It has to. But don't worry, we're precise. No mistakes, no loose ends. And don't blame yourself. She made her choices. I nodded, drawing a deep breath. Anger simmered beneath my skin, but it was tempered by the calm focus Do-Wan brought to the table. I felt an unexpected sense of safety in his presence, even as we plotted to dismantle lives. Next was Hosung. His career had been carefully built, a combination of charm, manipulation, and well-placed favors. Undoing it would require finesse. Do-Wan guided me through every step, gathering emails, documenting misconduct, preparing anonymous tips to key industry contacts. This isn't just about revenge, Do-Wan said quietly as we worked. It's about exposing the truth. About making sure he can't hurt anyone else the way he hurt you. His words struck me. I had been consumed by personal betrayal, but this was bigger. Hosung had been a predator, hiding behind the mask of a lover. And now, the mask was coming off. Hours passed, punctuated by brief silences where we simply sat, side by side, planning our next move. At one point, he glanced at me, eyes softening. You're handling this well, he said, voice almost a whisper. I felt a warmth rush through me, the first human connection I allowed myself since the betrayal. I couldn't do it without you, I admitted. He didn't say anything, just gave a small nod, his hand brushing mine briefly as he handed me a folder. The touch was fleeting, but it sent a shiver down my spine. Something unspoken passed between us. Trust, partnership, maybe something deeper. By late afternoon, our first actions were complete. My cousin had been cut off, notices delivered, and the first wave of evidence against Ho-sung was ready to circulate. I leaned back, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. Today was just the beginning, Do-Wan said, closing his laptop. Tomorrow we escalate, and step by step we take it all back. I nodded, determination burning in my chest. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but now it had forged me into something sharper, smarter, more relentless. And Do-Wan, steadfast, patient, quietly protective, was by my side. For the first time in months, I felt a strange mixture of hope and power. Ho-sung had underestimated me, underestimated us. And soon, he would learn the consequences of betrayal. And maybe, just maybe, I would realize that someone like Do-Wan could be more than an ally. The next morning, I woke with a strange sense of purpose. The betrayal had left a scar, but now it felt more like a weapon. Every breath, every movement, every thought was fueled by the knowledge that Ho-sung and my cousin had underestimated me. That mistake would cost them dearly. Do-Wan was already waiting at my apartment, laptop open, coffee in hand, looking effortlessly composed. "Ready to escalate?" he asked, eyes sharp. I nodded, though my heart fluttered at the sight of him.
"Ready."
Let's make today count. We started with Ho-sung. He had carefully curated his image as the charming, untouchable professional. But every empire has cracks, and Do-Wan and I were about to exploit every one. We dug through public records, compiled evidence of past favors, questionable dealings, and even subtle hints of professional misconduct that could ruin his reputation if exposed. "This is meticulous," I said, impressed by the depth of our work. "It's like we're painting a picture of him, the real him." Do-Wan nodded.
"Exactly.
The more precise we are, the less room he has to wiggle out. And every piece we gather is another brick in the wall we're building around him." As we worked, I felt a strange warmth in the quiet moments, the way he would glance at me to make sure I was okay, the subtle encouragement when I hesitated. There was no judgment, no rush, just steady presence. It was a stark contrast to Ho-sung, whose betrayal had left me questioning every instinct I'd trusted. By mid-afternoon, it was time for my cousin. The first notices had been delivered, but we needed to ensure the impact would be felt without leaving room for excuses. Do-Wan guided me through the steps, redirecting tuition funds, alerting administrators, and subtly undermining her sources of advantage. "Are you okay doing this?" he asked softly, noticing my hesitation. I looked up, my hands tightening on the folder. "I have to be. I can't let her betrayal stand. I can't let him get away with hurting me." He gave me a small, approving nod.
"Good.
You're stronger than you know. And I'm right here, every step of the way." His words hit me harder than I expected. I realized that beyond the revenge, beyond the anger, there was a trust forming between us, a connection I hadn't allowed myself to feel since the betrayal. His presence was grounding, steady, and somehow comforting. By evening, the first effects of our plan were visible. My cousin's sudden loss of privilege had shaken her confidence, and the whispers about Ho-sung's questionable dealings had begun to circulate. The initial shock of betrayal was now being mirrored back at them. Do-Wan leaned back, a faint smile on his face. "We're making progress. Step by step, they're realizing they can't control everything anymore." I allowed myself a small, victorious smile. "It feels good, like taking back my life piece by piece." He reached over and brushed a stray strand of hair from my face. The touch was brief, but my chest warmed in a way I hadn't felt in months. "This is just the beginning," he said, voice low. "And when it's all done, we rebuild. From the ground up." I nodded, letting the feeling linger. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but now it had forged something sharper, more determined. And with Do-Wan by my side, I knew I wasn't just fighting for revenge. I was reclaiming my life, my power, and maybe even my heart. For the first time since that GPS lit up with his lies, I felt the stirring of hope. Not the naive, trusting hope of before, but a fierce, deliberate hope. One that promised justice, strength, and, perhaps, love. The day had arrived. Ho-sung had no idea what was coming. Every move he made, every smile he gave, had been calculated to hide his betrayal. But now, the mask was about to fall, and I was ready to watch it crumble. Do-Wan met me outside the cafe we had chosen for the confrontation. His presence was calm, a steady anchor for the storm raging inside me. "Are you sure you want to do this here?" he asked, eyes scanning the empty street around us. I clenched my fists, forcing my anger into focus.
Yes. He needs to feel it.
He needs to see that I know everything. We walked inside together. The cafe was nearly empty, the soft hum of music masking the tension that I could feel in my chest. And then I saw him, Ho-sung, leaning casually against the counter, his expression smug, as if he expected me to walk in crying, begging for his explanation. "Seo Hyun," he said smoothly, his voice dripping with false charm. "I wasn't expecting you here. Everything okay?" I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I let my eyes drift to my cousin, who sat nervously at a table, avoiding my gaze. The betrayal wasn't just a personal wound. It was a wound delivered by family, and it stung twice as much. "I know everything," I said finally, my voice sharp, steady, unflinching.
"The GPS.
The Love Hotel. You and her. I saw it all, Ho-sung. Every lie, every betrayal." His smirk faltered slightly, though he tried to mask it. "Seo Hyun, you don't understand." "Save it," I interrupted, my chest tight with fury. "You've lied for months, manipulated me, used me, and you think you can just explain it away?"
"No."
"Today it ends." Do-Wan stepped beside me, his hand brushing lightly against mine, a silent support, a steadying presence. "And we've made sure you can't hurt her, or him anymore," he said calmly, voice like steel. "Everything they've built, we're taking it down, piece by piece." Ho-sung's face paled slightly, his composure cracking. "You can't, this is insane. You don't know what you're doing." I smiled coldly. "I know exactly what I'm doing. And for the first time in months, I'm not afraid." I watched my cousin shrink in her chair, the guilt and panic clear in her eyes. She had made choices too, and now she had to face the consequences. The rest of the confrontation was a blur, calm explanations from Do-Wan, the presentation of evidence against Ho-sung's misconduct, the subtle hints that his career was about to unravel. The smug, untouchable man I had once loved was cracking, and it felt like justice. Personal, satisfying, precise. After it was over, as Ho-sung stormed out in a flurry of rage and disbelief, I felt a strange release. The anger was still there, but it was tempered by something new. Control.
Power.
The realization that I had reclaimed my agency, my life, and my dignity. Do-Wan's hand found mine again as we stepped outside. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His steady presence spoke volumes, a quiet promise that I wasn't alone. For the first time since the GPS revealed the betrayal, I smiled. Genuine, free, unguarded. The old Seo Hyun, the forgiving one, was gone. And from her ashes, a sharper, stronger, wiser version of me had emerged. And beside me, Do-Wan stood, not just as a friend, but as something more, something steady, patient, and unwavering. We walked away from the cafe, the city lights illuminating the path ahead. Revenge was only the beginning, but it had shown me something vital. I was capable of facing betrayal, reclaiming my life, and opening my heart, carefully, deliberately, to someone who truly deserved it. The days after the confrontation were electric. Ho-sung's smug confidence had begun to crack, but he was still dangerous. I could feel the tension in every interaction, every text, every call. He didn't know the full extent of our plan yet, but that was about to change. Do-Wan arrived at my apartment early, carrying a folder bulging with new information. His eyes met mine, calm yet intense. "Today we escalate," he said, voice low but commanding. I nodded, gripping my coffee cup tightly. "I'm ready. Let's make sure he can't recover." We spent hours meticulously going over every piece of evidence, every weak point in Ho-sung's professional network. Emails, contracts, subtle irregularities in his work. Do-Wan had collected it all, and together, we were crafting a strategy that would leave him with no room to maneuver. "You've thought of everything," I said, impressed despite the heat in my chest. "This isn't just revenge, it's justice." Do-Wan gave a small, approving smile. "That's the goal. We're not just taking him down. We're making sure he can't hurt anyone else, and we're protecting you from ever being manipulated again." As we worked, I felt a strange sense of calm in the storm. The old Seo Hyun would have panicked, questioned every move, second-guessed herself. But the new me, sharper, stronger, more deliberate, was in control. And Do-Wan's presence anchored me, his steady calm guiding my anger into precision. By mid-afternoon, we moved to the next phase, carefully leaking selected information to key industry contacts and ensuring that Ho-sung's reputation began to fracture publicly. I watched as whispers started to spread, subtle but potent, and a part of me thrilled at the first tangible signs of our plan working. Do-Wan glanced at me then, his expression softening slightly. "You're handling this impressively," he said quietly. "Anger fuels you, but you're channeling it. You're not just reacting, you're controlling the situation." I felt heat rise in my cheeks, a mix of pride and something else I couldn't name. "I couldn't do this without you," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He reached over, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face. The touch lingered a moment longer than necessary, and I felt a shiver run through me. It was a simple gesture, but in that moment, it meant everything: support, understanding, trust, maybe even something deeper. As evening fell, we reviewed the day's progress. Ho-sung was beginning to panic, his messages increasingly frantic, his carefully maintained facade unraveling. My cousin had started to show cracks too, realizing the consequences of her actions. Do-Wan leaned back, exhaling slowly. "We're making them see the consequences. They thought they could manipulate and betray without repercussions, but they underestimated you, underestimated us." I smiled, the first time in weeks that it felt genuine. "And after this, what happens next?" He reached for my hand, holding it gently, his eyes soft but serious. "After this, we rebuild. Slowly.
Carefully.
And maybe, if you let me, we do it together." The words sent a thrill through me, but I didn't rush them. I had been betrayed, I had been hurt, and I wasn't naive anymore. But the idea of moving forward, reclaiming my life, my strength, and maybe even my heart, with someone who truly had my back, it was tantalizing. As we left my apartment that night, the city lights glowing around us, I realized something crucial. Ho-sung's betrayal had forged me into someone stronger, someone capable of control and courage. And Do-Wan, steady and patient, was proving to be more than an ally. He was becoming a part of the life I was building from the ashes. The storm was far from over, but for the first time, I felt empowered, purposeful, and maybe even ready to open my heart again. The city felt tense that morning, as if it knew something was about to unravel. Ho-sung had realized that the tide had turned, and I could feel his desperation radiating through every interaction, every rumor, every frantic message that reached me. But this time, I was calm, coldly precise, unflinching. Do-Wan arrived at my apartment before sunrise, laptop and folders in hand, his expression calm but intense. "Today," he said, voice steady, "we finish what we started." I nodded, gripping my coffee cup tightly. My hands didn't shake anymore. Anger had been transformed into purpose. "Let's do it," I said, my voice low but unwavering. We began with Ho-sung's professional contacts. Carefully curated messages, evidence, and subtle leaks ensured that his empire of charm and deceit began to crumble publicly. Each revelation struck with precision, leaving him no room to maneuver, no allies willing to defend him. "He's panicking," Do-Wan whispered, glancing at his screen. "Everything we've sent is working. His credibility is gone." I allowed myself a small, almost imperceptible smile. The satisfaction was delicious, but tempered by a strange sadness. This wasn't about revenge alone, it was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my sense of power. Then came the confrontation with my cousin. She had been warned indirectly, the consequences of her actions becoming unavoidable. When I finally saw her, the fear in her eyes mirrored the devastation I had felt when I discovered her betrayal. She tried to speak, to justify, but I held up a hand. "Don't," I said, my voice firm. "You chose this path. Now you face it." Do-Wan stood beside me, silent support, his presence grounding me. There was no judgment in his eyes, only unwavering solidarity. For the first time, I felt entirely safe, entirely seen. After the public unraveling of Ho-sung and the visible consequences for my cousin, Do-Wan and I returned to my apartment. The city lights filtered through the windows, casting long shadows that matched the quiet intensity in the room. "You handled this brilliantly," Do-Wan said softly, closing his laptop. "You didn't just survive. You commanded the storm." I sank into the sofa, exhaustion mixing with relief. "I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted. "You were steady, patient. You didn't rush me or judge me for feeling betrayed. You just stayed." He sat beside me, his hand brushing mine casually, yet with a weight that made my heart flutter. "I stayed," he said quietly, eyes meeting mine, "because you deserved it, and because I've always been here, even when you didn't see me." Something shifted in me then. The anger and grief had faded, replaced by trust, care, and something deeper, an emotion I had been too afraid to name. "Do-Wan," I whispered, voice catching slightly, "I think I'm ready to let someone in again." He smiled, a mixture of warmth and something tender that made my chest ache. "Good," he said softly, "because I've been waiting for this moment for a long time." We stayed like that for a long moment, side by side, letting the quiet settle between us. The storm of betrayal had passed, leaving only clarity, strength, and a fragile but growing connection between us. Outside, the city buzzed on, unaware of the personal reckoning that had just concluded. But inside, I felt victory, not just over Ho-sung and my cousin, but over the fear and doubt that had once ruled me. And beside me, Do-Wan remained, steady and unwavering. I realized that the woman I had been, the forgiving, trusting version, was gone. In her place stood Seo-hyun 2.0, strong, resilient, and finally, ready to love again, carefully and deliberately, with someone who truly deserved her heart. The weeks after Ho-sung's empire crumbled were surreal. The city buzzed on, oblivious to the storm that had passed through my life, but I felt lighter than I had in months. The betrayal, the lies, the humiliation, all of it had forged me into someone stronger, sharper, and far more deliberate. Do-Wan was by my side every step of the way. Not in the way a savior would be, but in the way a steady, trustworthy partner should be, present, patient, and unwavering. His calm presence reminded me that I didn't have to face the aftermath alone. One evening, we were walking along the river, the city lights reflecting in the water like scattered stars. Silence stretched comfortably between us, a rare moment of peace after weeks of high-stakes plans and confrontations. "You've changed," Do-Wan said suddenly, voice soft. "I mean, you were always strong, but now there's something more. Something untouchable." I looked at him, surprised by the warmth in his eyes. "I had to change," I admitted. "After Ho-sung, after my cousin, I couldn't stay the same. I couldn't trust the same way. I had to be stronger, smarter, more deliberate." He nodded, understanding. "And you are. And yet, you've kept your heart, Seo-hyun. That's what amazes me. Even after everything, you can still care, still hope." I felt heat rise in my cheeks, a mixture of pride and something softer, more vulnerable. Maybe. I'm ready, I whispered, almost to myself. Do-Wan stopped walking, turning to face me. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. Ready for what? To someone, I said, voice catching slightly. To let someone in. Slowly. Carefully. His smile was gentle, reassuring. Then I'll wait, he said quietly. As long as it takes. No pressure, no rush. I just want to be here. With you. A warmth spread through me, unlike anything I had felt with Hosung. This was steady, reliable, tender, but not weak. It was strength wrapped in care, patience woven with devotion. And it was mine to trust. We walked on, side by side, letting the quiet intimacy of the night settle around us. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt safe, not just physically, but emotionally. I realized that love didn't have to be reckless or blinding. It could be slow, deliberate, built on trust, respect, and shared strength. Weeks later, Hosung's name had faded from conversations, his career dismantled beyond repair. My cousin, chastened and humbled, no longer held power over my life. I had reclaimed my space, my dignity, my agency. And through it all, Do-Wan had been there, not to fix me, but to stand with me, to let me take the time I needed to heal, to plan, to reclaim. Slowly, intentionally, I found my heart opening again. One evening, as we sat together in my apartment, the city lights spilling across the floor, Do-Wan finally spoke what I had both hoped and feared. Seo Hyun, I've been waiting a long time to say this. I love you, and I want to be by your side, however you want me to. I felt tears prick my eyes, but they were tears of release, of relief, of something pure and beautiful. I love you too, I whispered, voice steady. And I want us slowly, carefully, together. He smiled, closing the distance between us, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to relax completely. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also led me here, to strength, to clarity, and to a love built on trust, patience, and unwavering loyalty. As we held each other, the city humming quietly around us, I realized that the woman who had been hurt, betrayed, and lost was finally gone. In her place stood Seo Hyun 2.0, empowered, unbreakable, and ready to embrace a life and love she truly deserved.